It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And we're the Insiders. So, Scott, the Wisconsin Supreme Court has now appointed not one, but two three-judge panels to take up redistricting in Wisconsin for congressional districts only. What's your take on that? What's the implication for the fall? And does this relate to anything else that's going on in redistricting across the country?
Well, you sort of predicted this, Chuck. We're on our way to redistricting the congressional districts in Wisconsin. The court formed two panels, which is sort of odd. One is going to determine whether or not there's been a partisan gerrymander in Wisconsin, and the other is going to determine whether or not there's been a competitive gerrymander in Wisconsin. Amazingly, they picked 6 judges for these two panels, and all of them have deep Democratic ties. There's not a single Republican or anyone who's probably ever met a Republican on this panel. So I think the results are sort of already known. They will redistrict the congressional districts in Wisconsin. We just don't know what excuse they're going to use for this late power grab by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So I hope that they have thought through the chaos that they are going to cause with this, particularly if they come in with a decision late, and also how unfair this is to people who've been running for office for months. In some cases, they have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars that they went out and raised, which is never easy, as you know, and they've spent this money to run for a congressional seat they may no longer live in. This is really just amazing to me. But, you know, we're in an age where people who have power feel the need to use it to the maximum level. And the Wisconsin Supreme Court is about to show that they can do that too.
Methinks he doth protest too much. What's interesting is that the state of Wisconsin, which is absolutely across the country seen as the most purple state. In fact, we were the closest between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in terms of Harris potentially winning in Wisconsin. It would have been the next blue state for her. And the Republicans, not Scott, of course, he would never have done this, but Robin Vos and the Republicans, when they were going out of power at the governor's office, called a lame duck session to take every possible power they could away from the governor in the state of Wisconsin, Tony Evers. And they have refused to do things as simple as a 1-year postpartum care for mothers of children in poor families. This party cannot complain about the fact that Wisconsin Supreme Court is now going to say, you know, being a 50-50 state, it makes sense for the state of Wisconsin to have 4 Democratic seats and 4 Republican seats, or to make all the districts more competitive. Because right now, as we all know, there's really only one competitive seat, and it's third. To have 6 Republicans and 2 Democrats in a 50-50 state makes no sense. Now, let me link this to the larger thing that's going on nationally. Talking again about partisanship, the most partisan thing that has never been done before, Texas decides to redistrict and carve up as many districts as they can, take away minority power, and give themselves 5 additional Republican seats. By the way, poetic justice may rule in this case because some of the Hispanics seem to be coming home to the Democratic Party, and all of those 5 districts may not actually fall into Republican hands. But given what's happening nationally, given what happened previously in Wisconsin, methinks they doth protest too much when they complain that Wisconsin might possibly have 4 Dems and 4 Republicans in Congress after the next election. But it is important for the majority. Although I have to say, it seems that the results are coming in and there's a lot of time before the next election, nearly a year. But it does look like the districts are running about 10% less Republican than when Trump ran. That is not a good sign for Republicans in the fall elections. And I think that Wisconsin is going to be part of the change, which is going to result in a Democratic House of Representatives.
So I think the Supreme Court of Wisconsin is likely to use the long-established principle that 2 wrongs make a right as the reason for their decision in why we should redistrict later than anyone else in the country, and take away all the hard work that people have been making, both Democrats and Republicans, for the last 6 months as they've been running for office across this state. It's an outrage, but that's all right. We live in the age of outrage.
Let me take a moment here. If you're a lawyer, you could say, well, there are lawyerly things that you could say about whether or not this is appropriate or not, or et cetera, et cetera. But here's one thing lawyers need to understand, and politicians really do understand. Unless at some point things look fair, nobody believes that the law really should be respected. To have Wisconsin, which has now for more than a decade had 6 and 2, or really only one competitive congressional district in this state, which should have 4 and 4, or a lot of competitive districts, is absolutely an outrage, and it doesn't reflect fairness. And I hope that the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and I believe, looking at the law, that they do have legitimate legal reasons under the laws and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin to find that congressional districting is wrong and needs to be changed. Unless we can do that, people will not be respecting that the law is fair, and that Wisconsin has 6 Republicans when the votes are always within a few percent of, and it goes Democrat, it goes Republican. We have a Republican U.S. Senator, a Democratic U.S. Senator, a Democratic governor, Republican Assembly. There's got to be a way to find fairness. And I think the Wisconsin Supreme Court is finding a way to do that. By the way, the biggest question is, can this all be done in time for this next fall's elections? That is really the big question, which both of us didn't touch on, but I think everybody understands that's the core of, can they even make it happen? This is getting late in the game.
It's getting very late, but Wisconsin's politics are always exciting, and there's always something new coming.
We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insider with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.